Hi, welcome to yet another edition of Gravitas with me, Sana Khan. Now, India has been spending more money on buying arms than any other country, sitting atop the list of arms importing countries for years now. From 2011 to 2015, the South Asian country has nearly doubled the amount of its expenditure from the 2006 to the 2010 period, making it a lucrative market for top arms exporters like the United States and Russia. But India increasingly looks like it wants to flip its role in the global arms industry by transforming itself into a leading arms exporting nation. Prime Minister Modi's government has already scaled up efforts toward attaining this goal. In the latest, India is all set to export lightweight torpedoes to neighbor Myanmar. The deal is worth not much, close to $38 million. So on the show tonight, we talk about India's larger strategy. Can India be a force to reckon with, or is it too early to say that? And where does India stand vis-a-vis the big players in the world market? We're going to be talking about this and much more around this topic. Joining me on the show this evening is Major General D.N. Khurana. He's a defense analyst. He joins me live from Delhi. Sudhir Ranjan Sen, deputy editor of the Huffington Post. He'll be over the phone line with us in just a bit. Also with us is Mr. Nitin Gokhale, national security analyst, live from Delhi. Thank you, all of you, for joining me this evening. Now, before we start off starting with Myanmar, let's take a look at what has happened recently. India has closed a $38 million deal to sell its indigenously developed lightweight torpedoes to Myanmar. The exact terms of the deal are still unknown, including how many torpedoes will India sell. But this is probably the first deal of its kind involving such a weapon. Torpedo deal with Myanmar. In fact, here are the specifics that we know. It'll probably equip Myanmar's Navy surface vessels. The Myanmar Navy is not known to have any submarines as of now. Now, India had earlier supplied naval sonars as well as acoustic domes and directing gear to the Myanmarese Navy. So we're going to be talking a bit more about this. First of all, why is Myanmar important? And let me first, for that, go across to Mr. Nitin Gokhale. Mr. Gokhale, why do you think India gives this importance to Myanmar at this point, signing off a deal, supplying them with torpedoes? We don't even know whether India is paying for it or not. Your take?
Myanmar is in India's immediate neighborhood, and given the fact that it is sandwiched between China and India, and it also is a country which is important for India's Look East policy, makes Myanmar an important player as far as India is concerned, especially in terms of security, in terms of its Look East policy, and in terms of keeping China sort of out of this region, is what Myanmar's importance underlines. And more than anything else, Myanmar actually looks forward to India's help in terms of training its military, training its the Navy, the Air Force, the Army, and also get equipment and platforms, weapon platforms from India, because Indian products are cheaper than the US products, and all these years, of course, Myanmar was under sanctions from the Western countries. So therefore, Myanmar-India friendship goes back a long way, and it's a good development that Myanmar is now getting this new product from India. Although one must emphasize here that Myanmar has had a lot of equipment from India in terms of guns, radars, the anti-mine personal vehicles, some light vehicles. That kind of supplies have been done by India in the past, but this is something new, where the sonar and the torpedoes are being now exported to Myanmar.
All right. In fact, also let me get in Sudhir Ranjan Sen into this discussion over here. I'm going to come to you, Major General Khurana, in just a few moments. But Sudhi, if you can help us understand what is India's game plan over here. We do not know, first of all, if Myanmar itself is paying for this deal that India has offered, supplying of these torpedoes. And we also saw not too long ago India discussing the sale of short-range surface-to-air Akash missiles with Vietnam. Is China India's key focus over here? What's your reading? So the question.
That is the major power that we are contending with, and with the developments in the Indian Ocean, which is becoming the most militarized area in the world, and much of the trade flows, or the major trade flows across the world coming through this region, China has to be contended with. And then how, if you have to contend with China, then how do you do it? There are several ways. You first may, India earlier believed in using its soft power, to leverage its position. Now it is broken out of its mold of just limiting itself to use the soft power, but also go a step further. And this is not only visible in Myanmar. We can also see that with our relationship with Afghanistan, where after a lot of dilly-dallying, we have started supplying them with platforms, military platforms that are not non-lethal. We have supplied them with helicopters. There is discussion going on to supply much more. So definitely, yes. I mean, you are trying to keep nations or countries within your sphere of influence. And one of the ways to do that would be to help them with weapon systems and platforms. Whether it is paid for or not paid for is not really not really very, very important, because generally what is done is you extend a line of credit to a country, and using that line of credit to that country, you send your own stuff. We have seen this happening across the world, with the developed countries doing that with the underdeveloped ones. It is an accepted procedure of dealing with these kind of transactions.
All right, Major General Khurana, do you think, looking at this deal and also previously, as we mentioned, can India as a country in this particular aspect compete with China?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you, sir.
Hello?
Please go ahead.
Can you hear me? No.
Major General Khurana, can you hear me? We'll try one more time. If not, then we'll try and fix your audio line. We can hear you. Please go ahead, sir. All right, we'll try and connect back with Major General Khurana. But Mr. Nitin Gokhale, coming back to you, I pose the same question to you. Can we compete with China?
I don't think India is looking to compete with China, but India is competing with itself in terms of defense exports. Let me give you some figures. Till 2014-15, India was exporting just about $140 million worth of defense equipment by companies or even defense public sector units of the Indian origin. And that sort of got doubled in 2015-16 to about 330 million. And the former Defence Minister Manohar Parrikar had actually set a very stiff target for defence public sector units and some private sector players in defence to say that by 2018 or 2019, and if not 2018-2019, by 2020, India must be able to export at least $2 billion worth of defence equipment wherever in the world. And I think everybody has taken up this challenge, including the defence PSUs and the private sector players. Hopefully that policy will continue and will further get a boost after this kind of an order gets executed.
All right. So over here Mr. Gokhale says, and to an extent correct also, that India maybe is not looking to compete with China. That's a whole different ball game altogether. But talking about the market for India, is there really a market for us overseas? And if yes, then where? Sudhir Ranjan Sen, that question's for you. All right, I think we've lost Sudhir Ranjan Sen over there of the phone line. We'll try and reconnect with him. Major General Khurana is back online with us, sir. I think we lost your audio link. We were talking about can India really compete with China?
Yes, Anna, let me take back the issue on to Burma first before we talk about
Sure.
China. Let's remember that Burma is strategically very important to India. It's a disturbed country where there are tribes or there are people up north which are friendly to China. There is a clear route from China down into Burma which links up with India, which gives them another ingress route into India. And Myanmar is also a bridge across to East Asia. Please remember that our thrust now is not just look east, but we are acting east. The other point that I like to make is notwithstanding the payment capabilities and whether they are paying or not paying, but when you export defense material to a country, it supports the policy. It's a defense diplomacy. What happens is that you develop relations. This is a key enabler to create a military relationship with another country.
Right.
And also, when they use the equipment supplied by us, this creates another military relationship because of the interoperability of the equipment, which can come in very handy when the two forces have to act together. Now, having said that, to say whether we can compete with China or not is no option with us. We don't have to start as a starting point whether we can compete with China or not. We are there in our own right as a major country, as a major power. We have our areas of influence. It is in our own interest, and it is our duty, if I may say, to make sure that we support those countries as our friendly countries with whatever we can. And I think defense exports and defense diplomacy is very important in that respect as far as Myanmar is concerned.
All right, Major General Khurana, I think that's a very crucial point that you made. Sudhir Ranjan Sen is back online with us. Sudhir, we lost you there for a moment. Now, we've heard this, the Defence Minister saying that India does not like the tag of being called the world's largest, importer. Obviously, India wants to do something more. It wants to export more now. But is India a credible player? Is there a market for us overseas? If yes, then where?
Well, I mean, there is a big market across like in Myanmar, in Southeast Asia. There is Vietnam, who we are training, and we also have been discussing with Vietnam whether or not to give them the BrahMos missile. Similarly, with African countries, we too have been in discussions. But the big question here is that do we produce as much? The ordnance factory boards that have been producing the majority of your arms and ammunition are running late in their production schedule, as a result of which our own military does not have or is not armed to the extent that it would want to. Similarly, if you look at the Indian Air Force, it has about 33 squadrons. It needs about 42 squadrons or more. So there is this inherent question is, do you produce first for your own self, or do you also look at exports? Now, that is one question that will have to be addressed because, it's a very simple answer because you need to be armed first. You need to be equipped first before you start exporting. And that is where comes in the Make in India program. And whereby you've been trying to bring in the private sector to produce and bring in the element of profitability, bringing the element of being able to unleash the private entrepreneurs in the defense manufacturing area. Now, has it worked? Not really, but it's still early days. Because, mind you, we have opened up the private sector only a few years now, and to build up an ecosystem takes time, and a lot of effort has been put in by Mr. Manohar Parrikar, who was former defense minister, in putting in the guidelines, the rules, the regulations.
Right.
Now, one has to wait and see whether it works or not.
All right. I think that's also a very valid point. A couple of questions that India needs to be, answer. India needs to be clear about when it sets these targets. Let's go back to what Mr. Nitin Gokhale was referring to a few moments ago. Former Defence Minister there, Manohar Parrikar, he'd not just long ago had unveiled ambitious plans to export $2 billion worth of military hardware by the year 2019. It could be a tough call as current exports are only around $300 million. Lifting bureaucratic hurdles is another issue that India has to deal with. Now, government has moved to lift some of the bureaucratic hurdles in the way of exports. They've diluted the requirement for no objection certificates, limiting it to only 39 items. Dual-use items do not require such a certificate, and the end-user certificate restrictions have been made more flexible. Now, as experts have also noted, India remains a relative newcomer to the export market, and that too at a time when military budgets are being squeezed and the big players like US, Russia, France and the UK have strong presence worldwide. Our exports comprise personal protective equipment, offshore patrol vessels, spares for helicopters and radars, items like T-90 tanks or the Su-30 fighters are assembled here under license. The Sukhoi fighters, even the BrahMos cruise missile is a joint venture with Russia. So the intellectual property rights vest with Russia over there. So a couple of questions India needs to answer at this point in time. Let me go across to Mr. Nitin Gokhale for a bit. Mr. Gokhale, there was this incident not long ago when the Dhruv helicopters sold to Ecuador crashed or were grounded. Do you think incidents like these mar India's image even before India stepped out in a big way into the international market?
China has deep pockets. It is not really selling equipment. It is actually giving it free and sort of giving it as something that they want their foothold to be created in neighboring countries and smaller countries which cannot afford equipment. Also, it, for instance, it gives the JF series of aircraft to Pakistan. It is giving submarines to Pakistan, just one instance. But it gives out gratis or pro bono equipment to smaller countries like Cambodia, even the smaller countries like Laos or Myanmar. It has given it in the past. So India cannot compete in terms of the ability that China has in terms of finances. But what India can compete with China is in terms of higher technical equipment, higher technical parameters and better equipment, and therefore I think India is not looking to compete with China. As I had mentioned, China gives away and has an advantage because it has deep pockets.
All right, Sudhi, coming back to you, aside from bureaucracy that we talked about, does India have that kind of technological prowess that is needed to venture out into the bigger market, talking about things that India hasn't produced till yet, or maybe it doesn't have the wherewithal to do so?
Well, the answer is yes and no, because it's very simple. I mean, defense technology is a cutting-edge technology. Now, if you look at basic research, basic science research, how much of the GDP are you spending on basic science research? I mean, it's pittance compared to developed countries like the US or, say, UK or France. So, yes, I mean, and mind you, I mean, this is nothing wrong, because as a developing nation, we have other more pressing needs, and those pressing needs could be developing better agricultural methods and not using that money, so to say, in defense research, which may or may not have a civilian spin-off, like the internet. But the question is of a small pie, and how do you divide the small pie?
Right.
We have started right now, and it will take us time. It cannot be overnight. It cannot just happen that you open the doors and it will start off. There will be some areas where we do well. Software and therefore electronic warfare and the other areas are areas that we do well. But if you talk about very basic hardware, no, not yet. There are other and better and bigger players in that.
All right, Major General Khurana, nearer home, look at Pakistan, they've started exporting to significant countries, the equipments, the quantities that we talk about. What do you think is working in Pakistan's favor, and what could perhaps India pick up from that?
Sana, before I go on to Pakistan, I think I'd like to address the two issues that have been raised by you and have been addressed by two panelists. One is, can India at this stage take on exports of the defense exports? And second was, do we have the market?
Right.
I'm afraid it's not either or. Yes, we have not been able to meet our domestic market for various reasons. One was technology, second was the investments were not forthcoming. But I think a very important part was the fact that we were entirely dependent on defense R&D, ordnance factory boards, and the PSUs. And as you know, the public sector and the government departments have a limit, and there was an amount of budget which was given to them. Once we bring in the private sector into it, this is a very lucrative business. It is a high investment business. It's a high risk business. Maybe it's low volume, but it's a high margin business. I think the private sector, given due incentives and given all the government support, which I'll spell out a little later, maybe in probably the next question,
right,
we can do both the things together. That is, build up our own domestic market and simultaneously go for exports. Now, these are complementary. The moment you go for defense exports, you increase the economies of scale. Your own market becomes globally more competitive. Your own armed forces start getting the latest technological things. So I'm afraid this question, whether we can afford to go and export when we are short of it, I'm afraid I would rather not address it. I will say the answer is yes, we must do it because they are mutually complementary. I want to address the second point about the markets. Now look, there are about 200 countries in this world. Take out the no negative list countries. You know, there are a lot of negative list countries, nobody wants to trade with them and so and so. Take out these large exporting countries, you will probably still have about 90 to 100 countries who need the arms and equipment. Now please remember, these countries, all of them cannot afford the sophisticated, expensive arms which the Western countries and Russia and China gives it to them.
Right.
Probably their requirement is not that much. Probably they're not capable to operate that equipment. So therefore, the present technology that we have, build it up to a technology which is higher, customize it to this market, and give the arms and equipment to them. Build up your defense market. Having answered that, so we have to have a selective market, customize
right.
it.
So build up your defense bucket, and you suggested ways that India can perhaps look at in doing so, Major General Khurana. We get your point over here. First, let me come to you, Mr. Nitin Gokhale, with the last reaction. Then I'll take a closing reaction from all our guests. Mr. Gokhale, do you expect established players in the market in today's date to sabotage our entry into the export market?
China has deep pockets. It is not really selling equipment. It is actually giving it free and sort of giving it as something that they want their foothold to be created in neighboring countries and smaller countries which cannot afford equipment. Also, it, for instance, it gives the JF series of aircraft to Pakistan. It is giving submarines to Pakistan, just one instance. But it gives out gratis or pro bono equipment to smaller countries like Cambodia, even the smaller countries like Laos or Myanmar. It has given it in the past. So India cannot compete in terms of the ability that China has in terms of finances. But what India can compete with China is in terms of higher technical equipment, higher technical parameters and better equipment, and therefore I think India is not looking to compete with China. As I had mentioned, China gives away and has an advantage because it has deep pockets.
All right, now that's going to be a big challenge because we talked about bureaucratic hurdles, we talk about the technological prowess that India lacks at this point in time. The Navy not long ago said about the Tejas that it will not be able to use it because it's overweight, it's not suitable for the aircraft carrier. So a lot more work that needs to be done. Sudhir Ranjan Sen, closing comments from you. final word, does India have the capability to be a big player in the market? Let's not talk about just competing with China, but to make itself relevant as an exporter. And if not, then, I mean, what will India have to do to achieve that quickly?
Well, I mean, India does have the capability, but the point remains is developing those capabilities will only come with due time. These things, very normally and naturally, defense equipments or defense technology has a long gestation period. We have to be patient. We have started off with this Make in India with a focus in defense, and we have to keep nurturing it. Mind you, in the areas that we have prowess now, whether it is ISRO, whether it is ability to send up satellites, or whether it is software. These capabilities have not been developed overnight. These have taken 70 years, and 70 years is very relative when you talk about nations. And that too when you're an underdeveloped nation and when you are coming out of colonialism and trying to put your priorities right and setting up a country. So we have to be patient. We definitely do have the capabilities, but if anybody were to expect that it would happen overnight, that is wrong.
Okay. And Major General D.N. Khurana, what do you have to say? What are the hurdles that India faces? That target for 2019, $2 billion, a bit unrealistic?
Well, maybe. But I'm afraid we've got to make a beginning. We've got to pick and choose our markets. It is a cutthroat business. It is a business that you are entering into, and there will be competition. But I think we are not utilizing our private sector. We have a very vibrant private sector who's just waiting out there to be given an opportunity. Give them incentives. Let them use the DRDO facilities. Let them use the laboratories of the defense which are existing at the moment. Give them all the support. Let them have access to the international market. Get our ambassadors to help them out. And I am absolutely confident that the time has come, and I totally agree with my predecessor who spoke just now, that we don't have to be impatient. We have to go step by step. But this world needs us. We have the capability. We have the willpower today.
Right.
We have the leadership. And we have a very, very vibrant and energetic private sector which is wanting to do it. So I will say thumbs up. Go for it.
All right. So India, they're eyeing a new role in the global arms race. There are signs that India can do it, but of course a lot will go into becoming a major player. We've talked about what are those things. On that note, I'd like to end this discussion. Major General D.N. Khurana, Sudhir Ranjan Sen and Mr. Nitin Gokhale, thank you all for joining me this evening. On Gravitas, taking a short break, we'll be right back with more news and updates.